casting of the Frank Stone. How different is it from the other games that you get to be on?
This was very different. And we actually had to learn our lines. That's very unusual. That was really special that I got to speak in Spanish as well. Like, I remember being that kind of frustrated teenager. The way that they gave us information was on a need-to-know basis. We just needed to know, this has been the journey you've taken up until here. This is what happened immediately after. This is the timeline you're on. That's it.
If you could only save Madi or Bonnie's fate, who would you save?
Oh, I want to say Bonnie because...
In this episode of Behind the Voice podcast, I'm joined by Díana Bermudez, who plays Bonnie and Madi in the recently released The Casting of the Frank Stone. She's a British Colombian actress who has previously worked on Moon Knight Marvel TV series and a variety of video games such as Stellar Blade, Baldur's Gate 3, and many more. Today, we talk to her about her unique experience in The Casting of the Frank Stone and which characters she feels the closest to. We also talk about her raising awareness about Colombia, her work in Stellar Blade, and some fun fan questions towards the end. Thank you so much for joining, Díana. I hope you're doing well.
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me and the lovely introduction. It's always nice to hear all the things I've done. I'm like, oh, go me.
Oh, it's so cool to see the amount of things that you've done. And, I feel like 2024 already is a really cool year for you because you've already been to space now with the Ark. How has it been like for you?
Well, that was actually no, yeah, that was end of last year, beginning of this year. The show's come out in the States now, and it's really it's fun. It's fun because I hadn't done like a full-on like sci-fi like that before. But obviously in the video game world, I've done all crazy stuff, right?
Yes.
And so I was like, yes, like I get to bring a bit of that fantastical fantasy sci-fi element into like actually my physical body, as opposed to it just being animated on the screen. Not that that's not cool as well. Like I love them both. But yes, no, it's been really cool to see.
Yeah, that's so cool. I will have to say I just started the Ark, so I'm still in season 1, still 3 episodes in, and I know you're in season 2. But how has it been like for you to be part of this world in the Ark? We are in space. There's all these things happening. How has that been like for you?
Well, it's been really fun, and it's been really interesting topics because, no matter where you go, like human topics and humanity, that they all are like, we can still have the same themes. So like, themes in this season have been things like body autonomy and things like, what was the other one? Anyway, sorry, I'm like, lots of topics. I don't want to spoil anything because it's still ongoing, so I'm going to just not say anything else. But lots of very real topics, and because the Ark is only set 100 years in the future, it's not so far to relate to, and and also it's always interesting to see, obviously it deals with the premise that Earth was no longer inhabitable, and so we are all these arks looking for a new planet to colonize and to live on. And so it's not outside like the realm of possibility. And so I think that's what was really interesting to play and to like still be someone who has lived on Earth, but now Earth is no longer viable. So like, what's next and how do we function like without Earth and stuff, and it's been really fun to explore all these themes.
One of the cool things that you also do that I've found out is like you love raising awareness, and especially with the Children Change Colombia charity, and you did a 10-mile walk as well. What is it for you to kind of raise awareness for such an incredible fundraiser?
Well, I mean, all the subjects and all the things that I talk about on my social media that I raise awareness for, which, are projects like Children Change Colombia, who are a charity who seek to help young people from disadvantaged communities in Colombia. I also try my best to raise awareness for like Indigenous issues around the Americas, both North, Central, and South. A, because I care about it. B, because I'm fortunate to have somewhat of a platform to be able to share these things. And obviously, I'm also very aware of my privilege, like having grown up in the UK, having not have had to live like with these struggles as much. Obviously, growing up in the UK as a brown Indigenous Colombian still has its own issues, but I'm really blessed to be in a position where I can highlight certain issues. And so and also like I enjoy it. I love, it's not like it's hard to walk 10 miles through a beautiful park just to like help raise some funds, you know. I mean, I feel very blessed to be able to do that. So thank you for asking that.
Obviously, I think like the you also made a video series for Latin American Heritage Month as well, which is like 4 video series talking a lot about it. That was really cool to watch. It was really cool to go through and know a lot about it, because, you know, obviously I don't know about it, obviously, so I just got to know from there. So it was really cool to know so much there that I just had no idea about. So thank you for sharing that, actually.
Well, you know, it's really interesting you say that, because, you know, John Leguizamo, he actually just released this whole series. I mean, I don't know if it's released, but I saw it on Instagram just this morning, and it's all about our ancestry and our heritage. And I think that more and more we are wanting to actually learn about different non-Western or non-colonial viewpoint histories, you know, because we've always, at least me as a Latin American woman, unfortunately, you know, most of my history was always whitewashed or erased or rewritten. And so for me, it's so valuable because I've been able to grow and feel really powerful and confident, like knowing my own history. And so that's why I share these things. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to go through it and watch them all. You've done your research. Amazing.
Of course, because it's always fun to know more about different cultures. And as you mentioned, like there's so much more, and it's really cool to know more, especially when I was growing up. I remember my sister just knew everything about history and all of that thing, and I was the one who was like completely all the way down. So getting to know now, growing up, like grown up, and that, like, it's really cool to know what's happening. And again, thank you so much for sharing that. It was really lovely. Let's talk about the game. Casting of the Frankstone game released last week, and it was such a cool game. I had such a great time playing this game. How different was this experience working on Casting the Frankstone? Because there's so many scenes that you shoot. How different is it from the other games that you get to be on and did mocap?
This was very different in the sense that because we actually filmed on location, and we always, I mean, when I say on location, we filmed in Centroid Studios, and we were all together. So, okay, we weren't like on location in terms of we weren't in the mansion or anything like that, obviously, but we were in this studio. All of us actors were performing with each other, and we actually had to learn our lines. So
wow,
that's very unusual, because for video games you don't normally learn lines. You normally just, like, you might get given the script a day, 3 days before, and then you just turn up and you like embody the character and you perform. So you have to be really good at performing on the spot. But with this, we had to learn a lot. And I think the first time that I got like 90 pages of script and I knew I had to perform it like in a week's time, I definitely had a bit of an anxiety attack, because I was like, oh my God, what do you mean I have to learn this? Because, you know, you do have to be off book. And I think we were all in that situation where we were like, this is a lot. But we did rehearse. So that was another beautiful thing, is that we actually got to sit, it was a Zoom rehearsal with our director, Damien, and we got to read through like chunks, not all 90 pages, but we actually got to read through core parts, because obviously when we first came into it as well, we were like, what is this? You know, it was quite a lot. And I'm not a video game player, so I didn't know the world. I mean, obviously I know video game worlds because I voice them a lot, so I understand them through through an actor's perspective, but not so much through this perspective, the perspective of a game player. So I didn't really know any of the DBD history or any of that at all. So it was quite like pure the way we came at it. It was like, okay, here's a character, how am I going to do this? And there was a lot more investment. I remember on the first day that we got to the studio, we did like movement and embodying the character, because obviously we wanted to make sure that those characters were different to ourselves. So Damien, you know, did physical warm-ups every day, and then like getting us into character. So it was a much more thorough process. It actually felt more like theatre. than film, which was really, really cool because I love theatre. So and the rehearsal process of theatre, this is what made it extra special.
Wow. Wow. That's so cool. Good to know that it was more like, you're doing film or doing TV where you're learning lines, because it's not, as you said, it's not really, it's never mostly like normal where you have to learn lines and get to know the character beforehand or something. You have to do that here. And that's why I felt like this would be different than any other game, because you're doing so much more than, and in terms of video games, you're doing one chunk and then some other chunk some other time. And so how, and I know you've done mocap before, how was it like to work in this space with mocap suit with other actors, and doing all these scenes, because you play multiple characters? So how was that like for you at this time?
Well, luckily, I think they were really good because they understood. First of all, we shot quite chronologically most of the time, which was great, but also because it actually filmed over the span of around 6 months. So we only ever knew like, okay, this chapter, and now we're filming this. So, it's also broken down in that way. So I played Bonnie. Bonnie was my first character that I inhabited. And then we had like a month break, and then it was mainly Madi. And so then I got to be Madi for a bit. But then once I'd inhabited both characters, then I could like flip. Then I knew what the differences were, and then I could flip between both of them. Now remind me what the question was again.
No problem. I was just wondering, like, how is it like for you to be in this mocap suit and get to be acting in this kind of volume, in the sense of like you get to act with other actors as well?
Oh, well, yes. I mean, I think the most special thing was acting with other performers, because obviously, yes, I have done mocap before, I've done performance capture before, including for games like Baldur's Gate, but that was in one studio, just me by myself. And it does require extra imagination. However, with this, it was just so much fun because yes, we had to imagine our surroundings, but we really got to play opposite another human being. And obviously, as an actor, that's like really special, because that's what we do. I mean, I can look at your eyes and I can react. It makes it easier in a way, because sometimes when you're just by yourself, you have to also imagine what the other person is doing and react to what you're imagining they're doing. And maybe that person isn't doing that in reality, so it's quite a tricky a thing to do that singular by yourself. But in a group, it's just fun, and we got to just play. And because we got to play, like, we developed such a beautiful bond. We've all remained really good friends since doing that, which I think adds to the beauty of the experience.
Yeah. Wow. I just realized that when anybody who acts in video games, they do their scenes for sure. And everybody thinks like, oh, they must know the other actors that are in the game as well. But since they don't meet each other ever, like at that time, they don't know. But luckily for you in this specific game, you actually do get to see, you get to meet, you do get to make friendship when you are working together. That's like a special thing as well. And as you mentioned, like with other actors, you can bounce off their reactions, and it's much more authentic that way. And you could see that in the game whether you're playing as Bonnie or Madi, which is really cool. And such a cool thing as well that you play two characters, two very different personalities, different ways of doing it. How is it for you to play two different characters? Obviously, you have directors directing you as well, but what is your mindset like when you know that, okay, I'm playing this and then I'm switching back to playing this other character, Madi, as well? What is going through your head at the time?
Well, I mean, the first thing was that was how I auditioned for it originally. Was they just said, "Oh, you're going to have to play two characters," and they gave a very brief description. I had to audition for this, and I just looked at them, and I just went on instinct. And obviously, voice-wise, I was like, "Oh, well, this vocally is lower pitch. She's like rougher, she's grittier, she's more like, energy in the hips, kind of very sassy." And then I looked at Madi's character, and of course at the time I had no idea that they were related, or I didn't know how they were related. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, she seems a lot more vulnerable and naive and scared and anxious. And so then I was like, okay, well, she lives higher in my pitch. Her physicality is more like, her shoulders are a bit more like this. She doesn't have the energy in the hips because she's not sassy like Bonnie. And so, yeah, when I'm switching from either one, I mean, we always, no matter what video game or what character you're playing, I mean, most voice actors, like, first of all, they listen for reference to what they previously did. So that immediately puts me back into her vocal tone. And then because there's so much in the physicality, like, and because she's so sassy, like, all of that then just like filters down. And you know, her backstory, we spoke about the backstories of each of them. They go through different journeys. They both have a different approach. Obviously, with Bonnie, you know, she's dealing with a lot.
Yes, a lot.
She's dealing with a lot, and she's frustrated, but she's also very like self-assured, and she knows who she is. And there's all these beautiful things that when I'm embodying Bonnie, like, I just anchor to those things. And then when I'm embodying Madi, I just remember that, I mean, Madi goes through her own process as well. She starts off very fragile and vulnerable and scared, and like she goes through I mean, depending on what storyline you choose, she goes through her own little hero's journey to become more confident. But yes, I think physicality and voice helping me to differentiate and where the energy. So Madi was always like here in the chest and up here and higher pitched. Bonnie was always like very loose and in the hips and lower. And so there you go. Having two clear differences helped me switch between the two.
That's wonderful. That's so good to know, like, this, you know, knowing the breakdown from your side. It's so good to know like how it actually goes through in your head to separate these two. And you know, I love to say, like, you did such a phenomenal job both the characters. I felt Maddie's pain and the anxiety levels of hers, and I felt like how Bonnie's, like, I felt like she's so cool and all, but she has all those things going on in her life as well. But you know, has that punk rock, like, love the hair, love the style, all of that. Which character do you feel like you relate to the most, whether it's Bonnie, whether it's Maddie, or is it something that you had to kind of in some ways relate to them so that you can give a genuine performance?
Well, because I started with Bonnie, I related so much to Bonnie in many different ways. I mean, first of all, like, we're Latin American women. There was part of that was really special, that I got to speak in Spanish as well. Like, I loved that. I did a little bit of that translation, and I remember being that kind of frustrated teenager, kind of trying to go away from my own, like, the Latin American values at home and the strictness and the rigidity, and kind of rebelling. So I did relate to aspects of that for sure. And also because with Bonnie, you know, she uses some Spanish, so calling her little brother hermanito, and like, it was just part of all of those little things that added an extra layer for me that I was able to connect with more. Not to say that I didn't connect with Madi, but I felt that Bonnie's energy was just more mature. She has to live through a lot, and she had to be like the woman of the house and kind of try and manage everyone, right? Whilst with Madi, it was still very much in her, like, just kind of trying to figure out what's going on. And so in terms of my connection with Madi, it was more from just I had to be my most naive, kind of open, like, seeing the world for the first time type energy. And I'm 36, so I was just like, take it right back, because Madi felt very young to me. And again, this is the beauty of video games, because I definitely couldn't play Maddie in real life, you know. I feel that yeah, just like, I don't think that I could do that for real. I wouldn't pass as an early 20-year-old, that's for sure. Whilst, you know, that in a video game, I'm so fortunate that I'm able to use my voice to, like, and physicality. It doesn't have to be me, but it's my movement and my voice, and I'm able to be this 20-something-year-old. Go back in time.
It's always so cool to like, knowing that you go back in time, and you can do that in video games. You can go and play a younger character and get to, be that version and show that to everybody who's either playing, watching, however they do it. Like, it's so cool that video games can allow doing that. And you mentioned about, the Bonnie's relationship with the brother. Andrew plays Jaime. And
Yeah.
what was it like to kind of have that bond with Andrew at the same time and playing a brother-sister relationship in this game?
Oh, it was really fun. It was really, really fun because I just got to poke him a lot. So I don't have a brother, but it was really fun because also like we also did bond because obviously Andrew is also of Puerto Rican descent, so having that shared Latin American background, and so I did feel that warmth towards him even as we proceeded with the filming and recording of the game. But it was just really fun because I feel like Bonnie was just written, her lines were written so well, and her character was really well written. So we did get to just like, we got to bond and play, and Andrew was always up for like, no, yeah, it's fine, just poke me. Like, so yeah, you can just shove me. Yeah, no, that's fine. Like, that's why it felt very theatrical, because we actually got to, like touch each other, push each other, physical contact, which is so rare in a video game, to ever do that with another actor. So that, yeah, it was fun. And Andrew's wicked to work with. Everyone's wicked to work with. But yeah, it was a really special cast. I won't deny that.
Wow. Yeah, that's so cool that you get to do so much. And you mentioning like, you get to poke around. Is there something that you guys brought in as your ideas that you wanted to do and you got to do it? Is there some ideas that floated around between both of you guys? I just wanted to do something new in there.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that we actually got to explore a lot. So obviously we had the Zoom rehearsals, but then we would come into the space in the morning, and whilst we were all getting ready and getting into our mocap suits, and everyone was setting up, we'd rehearse, and we'd be like, oh, maybe this, or maybe you could like do like, we'd actually be able to really play a lot, and give our own ideas. And then we'd go into the space and we'd do the scene, we'd kind of just read it out the first time, and then Damien would say, okay, let's see how this plays out. And so we'd experiment, and we'd be like, maybe not, no, that doesn't feel right. So it was very collaborative in that sense. And yes, a lot of the suggestions were our own. Like, I definitely added in a few more hermanitos, because I was like, I really want to keep that. So can I please use it a bit more freely? And we were really lucky because obviously we had Steve and Paul and Tracy right there in the studio as well. So it's like they could just sign off on it immediately, like, and just be like, yeah, that's cool. But it was very collaborative, and we brought a lot of our own ideas to how it could be played. There were certain things where maybe there was more restrictions, but generally we were told, okay, this is the space. You've got a sofa here, you've got a bed here, you've got this, like, what do you think you would do? So there was so much creative freedom. Again, it was just such a wicked project to be able to do that with. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. That's so good to know that you guys got to do so much. And one of the cool things about I'm a big fan of horror. So I've been when I saw this game being announced, I was like, yep, I'm playing it, of course. And so when I played the game, there's always this horror in it. I'm always curious about certain things when, especially in this game where you are, there's a monster, there's somebody chasing you, you have the sense of fear. Obviously, an actor can act like as if there's a happiness, being able to emote happiness, being able to emote sadness. I'm always curious, how do you emote or express fear when you are either being chased or something happens? How do you emote that? Because I find that very challenging. What do you do to kind of like express that?
I mean, it's imagination. I think especially as video game actors, we have to use our imagination so much. What we were lucky with was that we also, because we had the supermassive team right there, we were able to see some visuals. Obviously limited, we didn't see the whole game, of course, but we were able to see some visuals. And so we would just have to imagine and put ourselves, and also there's like tricks, like in terms of especially like breath, and like again, because we're voice actors, we know, okay, and like, you know, doing things but without hyperventilating and fainting, of course. So these are all things, so you put them both, imagination, understanding how your voice will sound, you put that all together, and then you play in the space. So I remember there was one where they created like the woods for me, and I had to walk and like slightly run, and it was an interesting thing because you have to kind of mix the pace. Oh, Díana, can you just kind of go fast in the first bit, but then slow down because we need to be able to see this section here, and then go fast. So you're remembering, okay, fast, slow, then fast again, and then like all the blocking and the speeds, and then trying to match your voice. Obviously, for the mocap, being aware of your body movement and how that's going to reflect on screen, right? Because yes, you're doing it authentically, but with a slight, you have to remember that it's your body performing. Right. So when we were at Centroid, it was mainly our body. Then when we were at Molyneux, it was our face and voice. So we actually filmed it separately. So the focus when we were at Centroid was on physicality and body. And obviously we had to do our voices as well to help that. But it wasn't, the focus wasn't on the voice in that section. And that's how we filmed everything in 2 sections. Wow. So then what we would do, just so that you know, that what we would do is that then we would watch ourselves performing, and then match our physical body performance, and then perform it with our face and voice. It's quite a tricky.
It is. It sounds not tricky.
But you know, I'm super thankful because all these experiences just helped me grow as an actor.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It's so tricky.
To answer your question, yeah. Imagination and different vocal techniques. But yes, and just I mean, I'm so blessed to be an actor because I just get to be creative with all these aspects, and kind of like, oh, let's try it different. Let's imagine that the monster is right behind me, or let's imagine that the monster's like all the way down there, so I still have a bit more time. It's just constantly using your imagination. And thankfully we had Damien, our director, who was always helping like give us some more things to help our performance.
Wow, wonderful. It's so good to know about the extra, behind the scenes stuff that sometimes a lot of people don't know, and how it all happens. Because I also thought like, okay, must be full performance capture, voice and body capture all done at the same time. And now that you're saying like, okay, it's kind of divided in that way, you're like, okay, that is a trickier one, but it kind of makes sense at the same time because it's everything is done differently. But it's so cool because when we see the game, when we play the game, it's just everything just blends together so well. It's just like it feels like those characters actually were in the location and shooting and all that. It's so cool. But I'm always I have this question, like if you imagine that you are actually Bonnie and you are in that time frame where there is someone in this supposed mill who has done some crazy stuff, would you and your friends be willing to go to that place and check it out?
Díana would never. No way. No way. Do you know what? It's hilarious because I actually don't watch. I know I'm an actor, but I don't watch horror films because they freak me out, right? Because I'm always like, don't go down the corridor, or why would you open the door? Like, I'm always like, it freaks me out. And it's hilarious because I know that like this particular game is like, what is it, 6 hours you can play it in? Yeah. Like, it's horror. It's like, oh my gosh, like that's why I haven't watched it yet, because I'm just like, oh, I know I'm in it. Yeah. And I know, but I still kind of freak out a bit. Just so no, I as Díana would definitely not be going to no way, no abandoned warehouse. Are you crazy? No way.
Oh my God.
These kids are wild. Like, I don't know what Jaime and Chris and Linda, like, no way.
Oh my God, that is so cool. Yeah, I would probably be scared as well to go there, especially by myself. I would never. But you mentioned like you don't watch horror movies. What is the last horror movie that you watched?
I think the last horror that I watched, fully, because I watched bits of of The Conjuring 3, I think it was, because I have a friend in it, and I just wanted to see a little bit clip of her. And I was like, yeah, that's it. I won't watch the whole thing. But I think the last one I watched was Hereditary.
Oh wow, wow, that's a
Yeah,
movie to
and
watch.
I had nightmares. I had nightmares. I could hear that click
Yeah.
for about 4 months after. I would be in bed, and then I'd hear, and I was like, "Stop it, head," because I know it's my head, but I get freaked out, and I know it's a film. Like, I'm an actor. I should be able to deal with this, but no, I just don't.
The next portion of this conversation will have spoilers for Casting of the Frank Stone. So if you haven't played the game, refer to the timestamps in the video. One of the biggest moments in the game is where Bonnie dies. And apparently, it's a thing that you cannot change. It's a fixed point in the story. What was your reaction when you found out that you really cannot do anything and she just dies?
I probably was dealing with the fact that there was 90 pages of script, so I was like, "Cool, she dies, okay, and then I can play Maddie." So, so it probably wasn't as like, and also because I don't think that I was aware at the time that she was unsavable. You know, uh, when we were reading it, there were so many different options, and it was like, okay, so this is option 4, and this is option 5, and I think at the time we were able to really keep track. Like, I give so much thanks to, again, Damien, our director, was just brilliant at just keeping like, okay, this timeline. Paul as well, he was there like, no, this is from this timeline. But I genuinely lost track, and so that's why if I did play the game myself, I wouldn't even know what track I'm on, because I couldn't tell you, I couldn't remember. So at the time, I was just like, yep, she dies. But everyone was playing a death. I just didn't quite understand that she was unsavable at the time. I played Bonnie's death so many times because right, it was hard, because not only did I do it in like the mocap suit, where you still have to like put everything into it physically, and then when you're doing it, later when you're doing the face and voice, and it's like, oh, it's very, very demanding.
I thought that she's savable. Though when I finished the game and I was like checking, there's like a thing in the game where you can take a look at what people have choose to like as compared to you, and there was like Bonnie's death. Everybody just, no matter what decision you take, she dies. I'm like, what? Like, I cannot save her. So yeah.
But what's interesting is I think I didn't understand that she was unsavable, because obviously Madi is her daughter. But obviously, like at the time, we also were so unaware of like the different timelines and the alternative timelines, right? Because I think the way that they gave us information was on a need to know basis. Like, we didn't need to know about any of the Easter eggs or any of, because we also didn't know the world ourselves, apart from Andrew. Andrew is a video game
Okay.
buff. He likes playing his video games, and he's already started playing the game, so he's been telling us about it. But yeah, obviously we didn't need to know so much information. We just needed to know, okay, this has been the journey you've taken up until here, and that this is what happened immediately after. This is the timeline you're on. That's it.
Wow. Okay.
So, because I knew that Maddie was Bonnie's daughter, I did think that she was savable. I assumed, right? But and I obviously, from doing a little bit of research on like seeing some of what everyone's discovering, I'm like, gosh, you guys really know your stuff. Of course, Maddie, like the two timelines must be from alternate timelines, because if Bonnie dies in that one, she could never have had Maddie.
Exactly.
So I was like, oh, that's why I didn't realize that she'd be unsavable at the time.
You have not watched it, and you said you're like kind of scared of horror, in general. I do hope like you enjoyed the game because there is some really fun stuff. There is horror, but I feel like it's still very small as compared to any other
Oh, don't worry, I'm going to
show.
play it.
Okay.
We want to play it as a group. That's the
Ooh,
plan for
that'd be
all of us,
great.
because it would be hilarious to see who we get.
Yeah.
So if I get to play like if I get placed as like Chris's character, or like Jaime gets to play as Linda, like I just think we would like to play as a group. So it will happen.
Yes, that would be great. Oh my God, I'd love to watch that. You guys play
Right?
the game
Watch
together.
this space. Who knows? Who knows? That might be coming. I don't know. I can't promise
Okay.
anything.
Okay. All right. I'll be taking a look at that if that happens ever. It's so cool that you get to be part of this game and you've been part of other games as well. One of the games that came out this year was Stellar Blade that you were a part
Yeah.
of, and you played Raven there. Such an interesting character because initially as a player, they get to see her talk about like, oh, this is happening in this world. This is explaining things of what's exactly is happening, and it changes. How has it been like for you to play that character? I believe that was only voice. I think so for this game. So how is that
Yeah.
like to play a character like that, which changes over time? Like her personality, I guess, changes over time, and her what she is exactly changes over time.
Yeah. So funnily enough, same director. I
Oh
mean,
wow,
right? I know.
crazy.
Damien was my director on that one as well. Completely different game. It was really interesting because it started off quite just normally, because Raven is just there as a hologram and she's just giving information. There is character and emotion and stuff, but obviously when we got to actually, like, when she's actually the Raven and you realize like she's this like warped villain, oh, that was so much fun. It was just, she's just so catty and like big, and I absolutely loved embodying her. I mean, she's a bit insane.
Yeah, she is.
But it was just really, it was fun. It was, obviously it was different. I was very much like in my own space, but there are pros and cons to that, because with a character like that, like Raven, I didn't have to interact so much with other people in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then when she becomes this evil villain, like I could really just, I had no pressure to get it right with somebody else. I could just experiment with how I like laughed hysterically, because she does a lot of that kind
Yeah.
of like,
She does.
and it was just a really, I guess it's about creating a safe space for myself to really explore what my voice can do and how I can like make this character really sinister and but playful, and so yes, it was different, but it was still so much fun.
Yeah, I love the villain characters. Something's wrong with me, I guess, but like I just love villain characters. It's so cool to see their stories, and it's just so cool whenever they come to a scene. This in some way they steal the scene, and I just love seeing that interaction with the other character. And you mentioned the laugh, like what is it like to kind of like come up with the laugh? What it takes to have that laugh being as menacing as it can be?
I think, well, first of all, I think I generally laugh a lot, and I have a very specific, like, my laugh is my laugh, right?
Yeah.
And then when you're creating a laugh for another evil person, she's not evil, bless her, she's just misunderstood.
Yes.
Well, first of all, like her voice was in a different place to my own, so then you use that as your jumping point. But you just really have to not take yourself seriously, because I do feel like a lunatic when I'm in a studio by myself, just kind of going on all of this, like, you have to just let go. I think that's a skill that voice actors have. You have to just not care about how ridiculous you might look or sound. You just have to commit to it and just try and experiment, and that's what we did in the room.
Just lose yourselves and just go menacing as you can.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
that's so cool. It's something that for sure will not be able to do it because I'll be like, oh, I don't know, I might be sounding differently and all that stuff. Because especially even like with this, like when I edit this, I skip what I'm saying. I just go to what the guest is saying. Just
No,
just do that all the time.
no, what are you talking about?
I
I
do
mean,
that.
yeah, maybe there is something in that. As voice actors, we just love the sound of our own voices. You're right. That could possibly be something. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I enjoyed Stellar Blade. I enjoyed the character that you played. It was really cool. There was a boss fight as well. Did you get to see more of Stellar Blade? Did you get to see everything that your character had to do in the game?
Yeah, I mean, I know I don't play, but I always watch the cutscenes because it is fun. It is cool to see like how did this actually turn out. Often, what happens is we might get one feeder, like so maybe another actor has recorded their lines, so we might get to hear that actor, and so that gets played, and we can react to it. That sometimes happens, not always. Sometimes it's just the director feeding us the lines and we just having to create it. So it is really cool to then go and actually watch the scenes and see like, oh, how did that play out? And so I do enjoy doing that. I do make sure that I try and watch some stuff.
Awesome. That's so cool. Well, there's some fan questions that I really want to quickly go through. Okay with that? Okay.
Yes.
So not so many, but like Andy the Gumball asks, what was it like filming alongside Andrew, who plays Jaime? Which we already talked about it, but like, is there something more that you want to say?
Oh, other than that, he's like a sweetheart, and we became really good friends. I mean, we literally just had a little celebration last week. We all met up. The team from like some of the team from Supermassive, some from Molinaire, our director, our movement director was there as well. Like, and we all celebrated. But I mean, yeah, I've already said it. Like working with Andrew is lovely, and also he's just so talented. That's another thing. Everyone on this game was really talented. Um, and that's a blessing always. I love working with other creatives, but I love working with creators that inspire me. And Andrew's ability and range is just incredible. Obviously for Jaime, he still changed his voice, of course, but it's more of a real character. But I don't know if you've seen any of his other stuff. Like he plays like all these monsters. He can just manipulate his voice so incredibly. And what was really cool about working with him is that he's really dedicated as a voice artist, and he works with a lot of coaches. And he's like, oh, you can use this technique to help with this, and this technique to help with that. So it's a blessing to work with actors who are so diligent with the work that they do on themselves, because it only means that I grow as a performer as well. So working with him was excellent. And like I said, we've all made really good friends, and we have a little group chat, and we were literally chatting this morning. So it was
That's
really
beautiful.
lovely.
Ah, that's lovely. That's wonderful. I hope I can get him on the podcast as well to talk about like all the incredible work that he has done in the games as well.
Mm.
Yeah, it would be great. Inner Sadness 12 asked, out of the cast of the game, which character did you resonate with the most out of all the characters, I guess?
Well, probably Bonnie, but also to a degree, Linda.
Okay.
Because, well, she was quite. I mean, she was also older than everyone. Like in the end, right? Because
Yeah.
Bonnie and Maddie, who were both in their 20s, whilst Linda plays like this like older woman who's like more like analyzing and like in that sense, like because of her maturity. And also her cynicism, and it's like, no, come on, like like I feel like I would be more like, what are you talking about? What are you alternate
What?
timelines? What? No, it's just a film, like So in
Yeah.
that respect, and she's a filmmaker, so you do. I related to her probably the second most.
Wow. Yeah, I love that character as well. I think I related to her in some ways as well. I was like, yeah, I love her. Like she should not die.
Yeah.
So I made it possible to not let her die. So in my playthrough, it was Maddie and Linda who were safe. I was like, yes, two people are safe.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, that's so cool. I love the fact that you could have different people who you save.
Yeah.
Like when we were shooting that, I was like, what do you mean Maddie's not in that one?
What is this? Yeah. Well, Blood Plum Luna asks, would you be open to doing more roles in video games similar to horror games or the ones that require motion capture?
Oh yeah, I absolutely love this genre. Um, whilst I don't like watching horrors, I do like performing in them. I really enjoy it. Especially there was some of the stuff when we were filming, like the chasing things, and like we were like crouched, and they build. Obviously, they don't build the set, but they put like frames here and boxes here, and they're like, okay, so this is actually a table, and you have to run around here, and you have to scream, and then you have to try and save them, and it's so physical. It's so physical and fun, and you're just imagining it all, and it's like I absolutely love performing it. I love doing it, and any type of motion capture, because obviously with Baldur's Gate I did motion capture, but it was different in the sense that it was quite well, my character is the guardian. She's quite stoic, and it's very like just soft movements and all of this kind of. It was very different physically. But that's what I enjoy about video games, is that each character can have their own physicality, and that part of the creative process is really fun to do. So yes, send all the video games my way, please.
Yes, I'd love to see more of that. Jay Birdie asks, if you could only save Maddie or Bonnie's fate, who would you save? Thank you guys for this impossible question.
Oh, but the thing is,
Let me say both.
Oh, that's a tough one, because I want to say Bonnie, because I would love to see a version of Bonnie in the future.
Yeah.
Like how cool would it have been if like Bonnie isn't dead, and that like Maddie's able to save her or something like.
That was so
How
cool.
cool would it be? Or if like Bonnie is dead, but Maddie is able to save her, and she's able to like speak to her mom again, or I don't know. Do you know what? Like that would be really cool. It would be like, oh my gosh, she's speaking to her mom who she thought was dead.
There was a moment in the game where I thought maybe, but I was like, it didn't happen. So sad. Yeah. So
I was also hoping, like when we were reading that, I was like, maybe Bonnie appears like through one of the portals, like Chris does. I have, there's me hoping. But I did get to do, in the nightmare sequence where there's the television playing, and then she turns around and Maddie's crying. Like I did play both of those, and so it was really cool because I had to do one, and then it was like, cool, now I'm going to play the other one, and I had to like.
Wow.
That was really fun, but that was a separate thing. So I think I would say Bonnie. Plus, without Bonnie, there's no Maddie. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, Bonnie needs to live. Bonnie, let's go. Jay Buddy also had another question. Out of Maddie or Bonnie, I think majorly answer this. Which character do you feel closer to? Who you are?
Yeah, I would definitely say I'm veering more towards Bonnie, although I'm not half as cool as Bonnie. I will admit I'm definitely not half as cool or confident or sassy as Bonnie, but I would relate. Well, now I put it in that way. I relate more to her in her maturity, but in my scarediness, definitely Maddie. I'd be like, she's a little bit more cautious. Which is more like me.
Totally understandable. Last question is from Diva. She asks, is there any scene that didn't make the game, but you wish you did?
The one where Bonnie survives.
Yes, like what happened there? Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, to be fair, like I know that always with an editing process there's going to be cut scenes that are cut, or there were definitely things that we had to film but then they were like, oh actually we're not going down that route anymore. I mean, I don't remember what they were because there was just so much being being filmed. But probably exactly that scene. The scene I would have loved to have done is where like Bonnie meets Maddie. That would have been a cool scene, right?
Yeah.
Even if they were just the teenage selves, because that would have been so trippy. Like Bonnie meeting Maddie. What do you mean you're my daughter? What? Like, you know, and it's like, oh, mom, you were my age. You're my age. Whoa! Like that would be so cool.
Oof. Yeah, as I said, I was imagining that because when Chris came in, I was like, oh, I'm imagining this might happen because Maddie said, I was like, yeah, I'm excited. Didn't happen. I was like, oh my God, I'm not excited anymore. But like, it was really cool to see. Overall, I think the game, what it got to show us and how, as you mentioned, you guys didn't know about the world of DBD. And I also didn't know a lot about DBD. I didn't know about it, but like, I didn't know so much to it, but how the way it ended, the way it's kind of showed us like, okay, this is now the world. And it's so cool. And anybody who's like a fan of DBD would really love playing this game, and I feel like you guys did really fantastic job, especially you playing two of these characters. Did not even feel like you're playing two characters. It felt like different people. Like, it's really cool. Of course. And I just want to ask you this: like, you started working on this game. Total Warhammer 2, I think, was your first game, I believe so. And from then till now, you're doing so many games. Must be an incredible experience to be part of these games. Right?
Yeah, for sure. I always kind of say, like, I mean, I feel really blessed because I feel like I fell into voice acting by accident. I mean, I did pursue it when I realized I was like, this is something. And then once I got into the video game world, I was like, this is so cool because, of course, I'm a brown Latin American woman in London. And there aren't many roles written for me. And when I first started acting, it was like, oh, we don't understand what you are because you don't look like Sofia Vergara or Shakira, so you're not Latin American. We think you're Asian. And it's like, but I'm not Asian. So like, so there was a really difficult period of my career at the beginning where I just didn't know where I fit in. And obviously things have developed and things are definitely like more diverse and more open to just anyone playing any character. But what the beauty of video game was for me was that I could play any character, but alien, bird, like anything. And so I think that there was such freedom, and I think that's why I've been successful, is because I'm so excited every time I play a new character. It's like, cool, what world are we in? And what am I doing? And who am I? And how old am I today? Because sometimes sometimes I'm 15 and then other times I'm 50. And just like the broad range of characters that I'm able to play in video games is just incredible compared to the reality of what I can do in the real world of film and TV.
I've loved your performance in all the other games, and including casting the Frank Stone, which is so cool. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time today to talk about everything, about all the process, behind the scenes stuff, and some really cool stories. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you.